Wes Goldberg, cold open question of the day for October 29th. There has been a lot of silly, I would say, in the NBA the last couple of days. See Brandon Ingram and Anthony Simons. If you know, you know. I don't really think we need to get into that. But number one on my list is something you saw up close in person, which was Dwyane Wade's statue.
Yeah.
Wes, can you like what happened here? Like, how did they? Is the statue as bad in person as it looks in all the photos I've seen?
Yeah, it is. It was pretty disappointing. You know, they do the big grand reveal. There's like the smoke show and the fire and all the pyrotechnics and all of it, and then out from the flames emerges this statue of anybody but Dwyane Wade. It doesn't look like him, and it's disappointing considering that it's the first statue in Miami Heat history. It's Dwyane Wade, the greatest player in franchise history, everything that it means to him. But the weird thing about this was that he was so heavily involved in the creating of the statue that he saw this thing created from start to finish. So he likes it, evidently, right? Like, I don't know that
he does.
He talked about like how like he was detail oriented with it. He talked about like there was one time where the distance between the top lip and his nose wasn't quite right. So like this guy was like dialed in, and yet it doesn't look anything like him. But he seems happy with it. But man, it is if you stare at it long enough, it starts to look like Dwyane Wade. But I don't think that that's the point of a statue. It shouldn't take that. It should be recognizable right away. And look, I will say this: they got a lot of it really right. Like I think the jersey looks really realistic. I think it looks really cool. They've got the pose on the scores table pretty much right. It's just the face, man. It's not a good face, and I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do about it because pretty much everybody agrees it doesn't look like Dwyane Wade.
Two things I'll say, and then we'll get into the meat of today's show. I don't know if did you see the reaction that the NBA Twitter account posted of his son looking at him and Dwayne just giving him this knowing look of like, yeah, that doesn't quite. This is cool, but it doesn't quite look like me. Have you seen this? It's now an all-time reaction gif for me.
Yeah, I don't know because I'm there, and I feel like a lot of this stuff was taken out of context. Like Dwyane Wade even saying like, "Who the hell is that?" wasn't really in regards to that.
But
statue not looking right.
What all I'm saying is things that are social media things taken out of context is literally the most predictable thing of all time. With something like this, it's just a meme. It's all memes.
I don't know what you do about this, right? Like this is, first of all, this is what happens when you start cutting the spending on the arts in this country and in the world. Like, we don't have sculptures anymore.
This is take number 2. How are we better at statues during like the Renaissance than we were now?
Because they didn't have TikTok to scroll through. Like people had to find things to do to enjoy themselves. Like I'm serious. People don't have skills anymore. You don't need to because why develop a skill when Instagram is right here? Like you don't need to do it. So that we could get into that whole other meta conversation, but I do wonder what happens next because this is, look, again, I'm trying to be as sympathetic as this was possible because they did try to do a good job and Dwyane Wade seems happy with it, but this is clearly a failed statue and it's rather embarrassing for the organization. And I think they need to fix it. And I think you can. I think you could just buy another one that looks better. And just replace it in the middle of the night one day and just go, hey, like what are you talking about? This is the new one. This is better.
Yeah, you gotta get on that. Protect what's going on there. All right, on today's show, we've got 2 big takes. I have one on the Thunder. Wes has one. Wes, I believe on the Bucks. Is that where you settled, or are you going Nuggets? Which one? I couldn't remember.
Let's keep the mystery in here.
Okay, keep the mystery. Surprise me too. And then we've got a game of what matters more at the end. Where Wes and I each will have a take. And we'll debate which one is actually a bigger deal, a real thing, just a weekend in the NBA season. That's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show. What is up, everyone? I'm Chris Manning. That is Wes Goldberg. If you have not already, please rate, review, and subscribe to the Just Basketball podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on TikTok, Instagram, and X as well. And Wes, we have a sponsor, as always, BetMGM.
Yeah, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball, and you're going to get up to $1,500 a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code Just Basketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, first take today is coming from me. Oklahoma City Thunder, Wes, I think they're better than we thought, and it's because of Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren has been one of the most impressive players in the NBA to start the NBA season. Monster games, night in and night out. You look at his 3 games so far. Playing good minutes every game. Obviously, no Isaiah Hartenstein, so he's just manning that center spot for the most part. He's at 25, 21, and 25 as far as scoring. 14, 16, 9 rebounds. He had 4 blocks on opening night, 2 in the next game, and then 6 in a 24-point win against the Atlanta Hawks. He's taken 5 threes a game so far, only 3 of 15 from 3, but he's taking them, and the stretch is coming. He's getting more shots, particularly in those first 2 games. Taking free throws as well. Wes, I think the aggression, the confidence, the level up we're seeing from Chet Holmgren, I think we knew that this was a big X factor. I think we called it out on this show. But if he is going to be this, the Thunder could be even better than we thought. And we already thought the Thunder were going to be maybe the best runaway team in the West in the regular season, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're framing it this way because I don't know if I think they're better than I thought, but I think that's just because I thought they were already so good. So it depends on sort of where you came into this with and what you kind of thought about the Oklahoma City Thunder. But it is very clear that they are the team to beat in the Western Conference. And maybe this, to me, speaks more to the rest of the West than it does even the Oklahoma City Thunder, who look incredible and terrifying in all of the things already. But teams that we thought might push them have looked a little wobbly. Like even the Minnesota Timberwolves are still working through the Julius Randle thing. The Denver Nuggets, we can get into that. They look like a mess. The Dallas Mavericks have had their ups and downs, even though Klay Thompson looks mostly like a great fit there. But the Thunder are just rolling, and they were rolling last year to the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, and they're or to one of the top seeds in the Western Conference, and they're rolling right now to what looks like going to be the top seed in the Western Conference. So but the Chet Holmgren point is a good one because he looks better than I think I was anticipating, and it's, to me, the biggest moment for him so far has been his head-to-head matchup against Nikola Jokic.
Yep.
Because that's why they signed Isaiah Hartenstein, was ostensibly for that matchup is, hey, we need to be able to mimic what it is Minnesota was able to do with Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, 2 7-foot centers who can guard Jokic. We need both of these guys to stop him. And then it turns out, no, you just need one Chet Holmgren, and he was enough. And he already had some Defensive Player of the Year type highlight reel things in that game. So, he's been tremendous. And I think it's fair to ask and wonder who will be the second best player on the Thunder, right? Because the first best player is going to be Shea. And I think most people anticipated based off of last year that Jalen Williams would kind of be that number 2 guy. But what if the answer is Chet Holmgren? What do you think?
I think that's where, if you were going to make an overreaction, Wes, in this first part of the season, that's the overreaction you would make. Chet has been incredibly shooting 56% from the field. He's scoring every night. He's making an impact on defense. And by the way, the Thunder are 3-0, despite the offense is 18th in offensive rating right now. But the defense has a defensive rating of 92.2. That's 4.4 points better per 100 possessions than the league's second best defense, at least per clearing the glass. They're killing teams on the defensive end while playing, like, at least efficiency wise, not hitting like the high ceiling I think we think of them on the offensive end. And that's because of Chet in a lot of ways. And J-Dub, by comparison, shooting 42% from the field so far this year, only 20% from 3. He's in a little bit of a slow start to begin this year, just in a little bit of a funk for whatever reason. You expect that to normalize him to get better. But Wes, I think it's entirely possible. I will say I think underrated it coming into the year. That I think it's pretty plausible, if not maybe trending towards likely, considering the 2-way high-end impact that Chet can make, and just him being in the center of the defense, meaning he can have a more outsized impact on the game in some ways. I think it's entirely possible we look at the end of the year and say, Chet's just the second best guy on this team, and an all-star level guy. Like, I think we could be easily headed there this season right now.
And that probably wouldn't be the more surprising outcome if you think about where Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams were coming into the league from, right? Like Jalen Williams, a middle of the first round pick. Chet Holmgren, a top pick, right? Like in the conversation for being the number one pick in that draft. And then if obviously he misses his whole rookie season. So I think we just have a little bit different expectations or as we get further away from the draft where he didn't play his rookie season. So, but typically you would associate the guy that was a top 3 pick in the draft as somebody who can be not just the second best player on a championship winning team, but perhaps even the best player on a championship winning team. And, I think if you just look at the way that these guys are sort of built and the prototypes that they represent, you would say, yeah, Chet is exactly the type of number 2 option that you would want next to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And Jalen Williams, as great as he is, and this is not even to take anything away from him, he's just not 7 feet tall. And he does not have the defensive potential and ability that Chet Holmgren does, who is very much in the defensive player of the year conversation in year 2. Like what this guy is doing is absolutely incredible. And I think his playmaking has taken another step as he's added muscle. He's finishing stronger at the basket. There's no reason why Chet couldn't be the second best player on this team. And the only reason he's not the first best player is because Shai might be one of the best 6 players in the entire league. So the fact that the Thunder are dealing with, like, I don't know, is it Chet or is it Jalen Williams that's going to be our second best player is a pretty great problem to have. And it just speaks to how good this team is.
The play that I think exemplifies all this to me the most, Wes, goes back to that Nuggets game. My excitement for Chet just hit another level when he had that block in the third quarter on Jokic. He's not on an island purely against Jokic. Shai is somewhat helping, and he's in the dunker spot. He is holding out. Cason Wallace is helping over as well and hedging. But these are not, and like the defense is clearly tilted towards Jokic. You give Chet infrastructure and support. But it is not like they did a hard double and made Jokic give up the ball. They did enough to put Jokic on a path where he was going to drive at Chet. And Chet, he took a bump from Jokic. He didn't get blown back. He didn't take the bump that even a lot of bigger-looking centers do and fall back against Jokic. He just held his ground. His footwork was perfect. He keeps the hand up at all times to deny him the look, and he's right there to block the shot when Jokic gets near the rim and has to go up. And he's just right there. It's positionally perfect defensive center play. And then if you watch how they go down the floor.
I'm sorry, but he's not even moved off his spot, which was the thing that Jokic did last year. He's just like, hey, cool, you're doing all the right things that you have to do positionally. Doesn't matter. Pushing you out of the way. Yeah. Now you're not in the right position anymore. Holmgren was able to hold his own, which to me was the most impressive part of that possession.
It's what makes it possible, right? Like that's what makes that thing possible in the first place. And then you watch how when he gets to the end of the floor, he doesn't like sprint. He has the capability just to go and hit the Jets and get out in front and be a transition menace. But he had like a very patient run where the Thunder advanced the ball. Him and Shai are the last 2 up. He comes down the middle of the floor. He turns it on a little bit once he gets past half court as he runs by Jokic. And by the time he has already outpaced Jokic to get to the rim, it's just an easy bounce pass into the lane and he dunks. And it's just like that. What he did there looks incredibly simple. It looks just like traditional center play, but that is like high-end star level shit from Chet in that moment. It starts with the defense. He makes his own dunk on the other end possible because of what he did. And then just the timing of the run, the way he did it, all of it is just absolutely perfect stuff from him.
And going back to Jalen Williams here too, the crazy thing is that he's not playing well right now, and the Thunder still look unbeatable. Like it doesn't matter. He's shooting 42% overall. He's made 20% of his total 3-pointers. Just 3 games, I know. But in these 3 games where they look dominant, they're 3-0. Jalen Williams is playing some of the worst basketball of his Oklahoma City tenure in this 3-game stretch. And despite that, they still look unbeatable the way that they do because it just doesn't matter, right? They've got Shai, they've got Chet, they've got Cason Wallace. Aaron Wiggins is having a great season. Like they're just getting contributions for up and down the roster. So they've got this 2-way guy, number 25. I don't even know what his name is, but like throwing dimes the other night. I don't even know who this guy is. And I'm just like, how do they just keep coming? Like they just come in waves. It's remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, they're even giving Ousmane Dieng like a little bit of a tryout right now, which is, I think, good for them in terms of development. They've made room for that. But like they have this 3-0 start with J-Dub, as we've said, shooting 42%. Caruso's giving them like nothing on offense so far, which isn't really why he's there, but he's shooting under 20% from 3. And Isaiah Joe's not really shooting well from 3. Like they're getting good stuff from Wiggins. Their Kason Wallace is their 5th leading minutes guy, and he's shooting 33% from the field and 11% from 3. Like, their offense is going to normalize, and they're already 3-0, and their defense is incredible. The ceiling is the roof for the Oklahoma City Thunder, to quote Michael Jordan. I feel incredible about this team. Chet, by the way, just in terms of advanced stats, we'll end on this. And EPM at dunks and threes is taking a second to load, but he's like, I think when I looked at this morning, he was like top 10 in EPM for the year. Yeah, EPM for the year right now. Jokic 1, Embiid 2, SGA 3, Luka 4, Giannis 5, Tatum 6, Chet 7, Donovan Mitchell 8, Brunson 9, Curry 10. This isn't like a perfect encapsulation of the 10 best players in the world. Like, I look at that list, and considering how he's played so far, Anthony Davis has been one of the 10 best players in basketball at the start of the year. Like, no question. But Chet, like, statistically pulling up in among these elite guys reflects how well he's been. It's been an awesome start for Chet, and the Thunder look downright terrifying if I'm the rest of the West and the rest of the league. Wes, before we get into our next take, talk about eBay. eBay has been a fantastic partner of the whole Just Sports podcast network this year, partnering with Just Baseball on 3 incredible events from spring training to the All-Star Game to Wild Card Weekend. We want to shout out their new Game Time Gets collection, along with their career benchmarks, league-wide records, and single game achievements that will trigger to drop at ebay.com/GameTimeGets. With bidding for each card starting at just 24 cents, an homage to the game's 24-second shot clock. So go to ebay.com/GameTimeGets and look at the drops to come. You know, Luka Doncic first triple-double of the season is one to look at. For me, as a big LeBron fan, getting to see him this week, I'm thinking about his 1,500 career games played card. That's going to be one for me. But your favorite players, their biggest moment, those are all going to be featured at eBay's Game Time Get. So check them out, and shout out to eBay. Wes, what's your take?
Chris, I'm officially worried about the Milwaukee Bucks.
Me too, buddy. Me too.
I came into this season saying, yeah, you know what? I'm higher on Milwaukee than consensus. I think we're ruling them out. Don't forget, it's still Giannis. It's still Dame. Like, there's Doc Rivers is like you say what you want about him in the playoffs. The guy just wins games in the regular season. Ditto for Giannis. Like, this team is just built to win 50 games. Like, their over-under on BetMGM, I think, was at 49.5. I was like, take the over. It's a lock. Chris, I'm worried. I'm worried about that over-under. I'm worried about everything that's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. They are 1-2, and I know it's only a week into the season, but now you've got Giannis saying to the media that they don't have an identity and they don't have a plan for how they're going to win games.
This is a Norwegian flag, but this is a red flag. This is not really like the red flag that is like a meme, but I'm waving the red flag for when he said that. I was like, oh, boy.
You don't have a plan for how to win games? What do you mean?
What are we doing?
How do you not have a plan for how you're going to win games? Nobody is setting the tone on defense. They're turning the ball over with dumb plays on offense. They lost to the Brooklyn Nets, for God's sakes, who are actively trying to lose, literally built to lose this year. Yeah. They turned it over on 2 basic entry passes the other night. It's Damian Lillard like throwing the ball over people's heads. Giannis just sort of like out of it. You've got Gary Trent Jr. stepping out of bounds. Just weird stuff. And then here's this quote from Doc Rivers that really sealed it for me, Chris. Oh, he goes, quote, and I'm going to remind everybody, we are a week into the season. It would be so easy for everybody to just be like, we're 1-2, but look, it was a little bit of a rough start. We're still getting our sea legs under us. We'll be fine, right? Like, that's what I think most organizations would do, regardless of what the truth is. It'd be like, hey, look, we're a week into the season. We'll figure this thing out. Nope. Doc Rivers, candid as always, quote, I think right now this team gets its joy from the offensive end. And when they're happy and they're playing well, then the defense comes in. You don't like that. You'd like it to go the other way, but that's who we are right now, and so we have to fix both. End quote. This is, and I repeat, Chris, very bad. This is very, very bad what's happening with the Milwaukee Bucks. They don't have a plan for how they win games. They get more joy from playing offense than they do playing defense. Those two things are related and not in a good way for them, because if one goes down, the other one goes down. And the overall thing for me when I'm watching this team is I don't know who is setting the tone, specifically for the defensive end, but you could say this really for both ends if you want. And that's supposed to be Giannis's job. Yeah. And you had that weird Giannis quote going into the season, like, hey, if things don't work out, like, I could get traded. That's the nature of the business. And we talked about this on here. We're like, dude, no, you won't. Not unless you want to be traded. And it doesn't really look like he wants to be there. And that's not even like I don't think he doesn't want to be in Milwaukee. It just doesn't look like he wants to be on a basketball court playing basketball. And that's the opposite that I thought we were going to get from Giannis, who looked so motivated playing in the Olympics, despite, the fact that he wasn't playing on a good Olympic team. I thought he had moments even in the preseason where he looked like angry and motivated. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to get like aggressive Giannis coming into the season. It just really hasn't felt that way through the first week of the season. And these quotes, it's just like, this is bad news, man. This is not what you want to be hearing after the first week of the year.
Give you a Doc Rivers stat that I saw when I was perusing NBA Reddit on Monday. Doc Rivers, forgetting the name of their coach, Adrian Griffin. When they fired Adrian Griffin, the Bucks were 32-14. Since Doc Rivers took over, he has a record as the Milwaukee Bucks head coach of 18-21. It's pretty bad, Wes. The whole thing that they spun about the Adrian Griffin thing, and which I think a lot of it seemed very fair, considering I think no one was really particularly impressed with the Adrian Griffin Bucks, was that like they just needed a more stable veteran coach who had been through this before, who could just like normalize the Dame Giannis era Bucks and just like make them functional, and that would, based on the talent, raise them up a certain level. That doesn't seem to be happening. It's like maybe all the concerns about Doc as a head coach were just actually pretty valid, and maybe this was a really rushed, silly name brand hire when you probably just should have ate the mistake last year and started again in the summer with a proper search. Like everything about this just feels pretty fugazi, and it's like even their team, it's like Taurean Prince is playing heavy minutes for them this year. Like they clearly miss Chris Middleton in just a major way. He might be one of the most like important at risk of injury players in the league right now. Like nothing, everything.
And even
about
when he comes back, do you trust him to stay? Like
no, everything.
That's the thing. The guys.
This team is held together by duct tape. This team
Yes.
is held together by duct tape that is already fraying at the edges. Like it's already looking weird.
Yeah, and the point you made about like the whole Doc Rivers spin zone is a good one, because even last year when he was hired, everybody was talking about, oh look, like they really tightened up on defense and all these things that weren't existing under Adrian Griffin. And then you look at their stats and you're like, they're basically the same on defense. They're the same. And I think after Doc Rivers got hired, I think they were 18th in defensive rating. Like they were below league average. That's not a good defensive rating. And I know that they lost Drew Holiday and you replace it with Damian Lillard, which is a big step down from the defensive end, but still, like, you still have Giannis and Brook Lopez on your front line. Like, you should be, like, the floor for this should be so much higher defensively, and it just clearly is not there. And I blame Giannis for not setting the tone defensively. Like, that to me is the biggest thing that they've missed from Drew Holiday. Not just the fact that he's a skilled defender, but the fact that he set the tone defensively, that he's throwing elbows into dudes and fighting over screens. And as the first line of defense, he just set the tone for everybody behind him. And nobody's really doing that right now for the Milwaukee Bucks. And to me, that comes down to Giannis. Like, that's his job. This is a guy who's won a Defensive Player of the Year. Like, this is a guy who is capable of doing those things. Now, I think it's probably unfair to ask him to do it 48 minutes, 82 games a year, but he needs to figure out a way to set the tone for the rest of his team so that they're just playing harder, right? Like, they're not going to be the elite defense that they were when they had Holiday and a healthy Chris Middleton and Giannis and Brook Lopez at his prime, but they should still be better than what they are now.
And that to me is to some degree on Giannis. Like you said, he has to be the guy, and like this is kind of what he's part of. The aura of Giannis to me has always been that he plays really hard, he brings the intensity, he brings something out of his team in his situation. Like he makes his situation better because of the effort. And if that's not there, that's a scary thing. I don't even have like a real positive feeling about anything that's going on with them right now. I know it's early, but like Dame is not shooting well from three as of yet. The Giannis stuff, they don't have Middleton. They're older. Like it feels like their rotation is very patchwork. When you're in the preseason and there's like stories about how they're trying to like trade Marshawn Beauchamp at a dump to sign like a back end rotation guy to like, it's just like nothing about this feels good. It feels all just waiting for them to lose. Like, it's early. Again, it's early, but it's like you look at the teams that are competing against the middle of the East, and it's like Cleveland, Orlando, like all these teams that are a little younger than them, a little more, maybe obviously haven't accomplished as much. They all feel just like a little more revved up, ready to go. Even like Charlotte, like to their credit, has like looked more competitive and like put together than the Bucks. And for a team that has Giannis still in his prime, it's pretty embarrassing, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think you would take. I don't think you could. Everybody had Milwaukee in their top tier in the Eastern Conference. Or maybe Boston was in a tier by
I
themselves, and then it was
I
with
did.
Milwaukee, Philadelphia, the Knicks. But there's nothing that indicates that so far Milwaukee should be in that tier. Like we still don't really know what to make of the Sixers because we still haven't seen Joel Embiid and Paul George. The Knicks still very much feel like a work in progress. But you already mentioned like Orlando just flatly looks better. Atlanta looks better, right?
Yeah.
Like it's weird. And so yeah, it is only a week into the season, and it's important to keep that as a reminder. But the thing, like these quotes just don't feel like this is a team that is writing it off as, hey, we're just a week into the season, we're going to figure this out. Like there seems to be a level of urgency that that maybe you could appreciate if you're a Bucks fan, but feels out of place based on where we are in the calendar. And like even the Chris Middleton thing, like that should be an easy excuse. It's like, hey, like once we get Chris Middleton back, we're going to be fine. Like he's such an important part of the team. Like nobody's saying that, right? Because nobody thinks that Chris Middleton is that guy anymore. And by the way, they shouldn't. Like he's at a different stage of his career. He's very important to this team. They are better when Chris Middleton is out there. But, it's just a matter of when he gets hurt again. And that's the thing. And so, yeah, like you said, they're held together by duct tape, and it doesn't feel like the duct tape is particularly doing a good job. And I don't really know what the fix is. Like, so, you look around the league and you're saying, well, then what's next? Because if this is it, and like they'll go on a run here, Giannis will look like an MVP candidate for a month, whatever month, December, November, January, February. Like we're gonna see that, and the Bucks will win like 6 games straight at some point. We're going, oh yeah, look, it's time to look out for Milwaukee. But if they can't get it right sooner, then those win streaks matter a little bit less as you go further into the season. And this is it's a tough Eastern Conference with a very clear team to beat with the Boston Celtics, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are 3-0. They look good. Like there's just better teams right now in front of them in the standings. And when you got Giannis, the goal has to be championship, right? And if this team isn't built to win a championship, if that's not the ceiling of this group, then you start to have to ask yourself some hard questions.
The last thing, Wes, is I think the vibes point of all this, I think it can't be underrated. I am firmly in a phase with my sports watching and fandom and analysis where when a team's just like energy is off, it counts to me for something. Jameis Winston is like the most recent example of this. It's like Jameis Winston starts for the Browns, and the Browns actually play with energy and like cohesion and juice that they didn't with a certain other quarterback. The Bucks are playing like a team that they don't believe in anything they're doing right now, and that would scare me more than anything else. Like age, everything else, just the way that they're playing and approaching this would scare me if I'm a Bucks fan. Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. What matters more up next? But first, got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses that uses vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball show. They have a ton of great stuff over at Homage. We just did a giveaway that we should be messaging the winner soon for the Homage New York Liberty NBA Finals package. A ton of great stuff there, but they have the great heavyweight jackets. I have a Cleveland Guardians jacket coming. They randomly had it on sale, so you never know what's going to happen there, but I got a Cleveland Guardians starter jacket coming. I had a Browns jacket from over yesterday. Tons of great stuff at Homage. Check them out. Support the show with the link below. Wes, what matters more? You give your take first, and then we'll go to mine.
Okay. Well, Russell Westbrook is bad.
It's tough, man. It's tough. It's been a weird. If you want to be charitable about it, I'm not saying you need to be. It's been such a weird transition for him from a role that it felt like he had found something pretty clear for himself to be something of an impact super sub with the Clippers. And whatever is happening in Denver for him just doesn't feel like it's exactly working.
It's not, and they need it to work because he was sort of their big offseason pickup, right? And they've been outscored with Russell Westbrook on the court by 37 points in 2 games so far. That's the worst on the team. He has been, by that metric, Denver's worst player. That bench is awful. The starting 5, I know we talk a lot about losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and you add Christian Brown and what's that starting 5 going to look like now. They've mostly been fine. The starting five has mostly been fine. It's the bench that has been worse than it's ever been. And, I don't really know what they do. Like Russell Westbrook he is so bad. He is not trying on defense, like at all. Like if you get one effort from him and that's it. He's out of place all the time. Offensively, it's not computing. It's just not working with him. He's shooting 11% overall this season.
You feel like it's flabbergastingly bad. You cannot overcome it. You cannot make it better at all. You cannot do anything.
And I'm just so, and I'm like, and it's getting like, I've always enjoyed. I would say I've enjoyed like 60% of the Russell Westbrook experience because he always plays so hard and all these things. And, he's never on any of the teams that I care about. So you get a highlight every once in a while and that's fine. He is actively pissing me off, right? Because now he's doing this thing where he gambles for every block, every steal. And yeah, he'll get one. Like he's got 3 steals and 3 blocks on the season, but he takes himself completely out of the play defensively. He puts the onus on the rest of his teammates on the defensive end. And like I said, once he tries for the steal and he doesn't get it, that's the end of the possession for Russell Westbrook. There's no more defense being played on that possession for him, even if there's still 20 seconds left in the shot clock. I mean, he was doing this the other night where, he gambles for a steal underneath the basket, or I'm sorry, it was a block. He gambles for a block underneath the basket, doesn't get it. The ball swings to the other side and his man ends up getting it for a wide open corner 3. And he's just staring at him. And you see the rest of the Nuggets teammates just looking at him like, dude, like what? Like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't how we play defense. We won a championship a couple of years ago. That's not what we're about here. And it doesn't matter because Russell Westbrook's going to do whatever Russell Westbrook wants to do. And when it doesn't work, he's going to blame everybody else for underrating him. And so he's actively upsetting me because now we're talking about a team that should be in the thick of the title race. And he was their big offseason acquisition. And he's been actively like almost sabotaging the second unit. And it's not just him, by the way, but to me, that's the one that pisses me off. But like Dario Saric looks very old. This might be his last year in the NBA. I think Julian Strawther's had his moments. Peyton Watson's been mostly a non-factor. They're not getting anything from anybody. And I don't know how they fix it. But Russell Westbrook, he's not the solution here. And I would be surprised if he ends up finishing the year on the Denver Nuggets if this is how he's going to play.
It's the Nuggets are in the spot where it's like, I get why they did this. I'm fully on board with them doing something like this. You kind of have to just take risks when you're in like a window. And if Jokic wanted it, it's like almost to me even more reason to do it. They haven't hit on a lot of those late firsts, but there will be a point this year, Wes, and it feels like, I don't know how long you give it. Is it half the season? Is it 30 games? Like whatever it is. There will be there's probably a meeting where it's like, okay, can we bench Russ? And what does that mean for him? Where does he go? I think like that just feels like the outcome of this. There's going to be an ESPN headline one day where it's like Russell Westbrook is, not playing for the Nuggets anymore. And what that means for him is an open question.
And what's funny is I've heard that argument is like, you've got to make the big swing for Russell Westbrook. I understand why they did this. And I still am not there yet. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're not talking like 2 years ago, he was the MVP of the league, posting triple doubles. Like, he's been on 6 teams in 7 years or whatever it's been. Like, this guy plays 20 games everywhere he goes, and then he's ran out of town because everybody realizes, hey, the Russell Westbrook experience isn't awesome. Except for the Clippers. And then as soon as they got James Harden, he just didn't fit there anymore. And then he was gone. He gets traded to Utah and then waived and all this stuff. And to me, there's other better free agents like Lonnie Walker. Why is he not on this team? Right? Like, why is Markelle Fultz not on this team? Why is Dennis Smith Jr. not on this team? Like, all these guys, sure, they have their faults. I'm not sitting here saying that they're an option that's going to fix their second unit. They're all flatly better players than Russell Westbrook right now. And it doesn't come with all those complications and the whole Russell Westbrook-y and sort of experience where it just feels like it's hard to hold that guy accountable because, and I don't claim to ever have covered him. I've only talked to him a handful of times, in my career. But if he was able to be held accountable, like, it feels like that would have already happened, and it just isn't happening. And I don't know how anybody could seriously watch what he does defensively and say, yeah, that guy is helping us win games. It just doesn't work. And then on the offensive end, it's all the stuff that we already know. It's like nobody's defending him, nobody's covering him. He's taking every open three that he can. He needs to just stop flatly taking 3-pointers. He'd be better off taking 100%. That hard dribble and trying to draw a foul than taking those open threes. It's working against the Denver Nuggets. And like again, I'll repeat the stat. They have been outscored by 37 points in the 2 games he's played. That's a wild stat. And Denver has a lot of things to fix. Yeah.
A lot of things to fix. Very concerning for a team that is on the precipice. All right, my take. The Cleveland Cavaliers, Wes. To me, they look like a new team under Kenny Atkinson. And I was in the camp of they probably need to make a big move this summer and go for it and do something to shake up their core 4. I'm fully on board. I was fully on board with that. The way that they are playing with tempo, with the way the offense just functions better under a different coach with different principles that maybe fits the talent better, it's really encouraging for a team that I think needed to get some juice back in and figure something out. Had a big win in the offseason, did a lot of re-signings, committed to a certain vision of their future, and just made a coaching change. And look, it's early. They haven't played the best teams as of yet. They have a tough week this week. The Knicks, the day we're recording this, they play the Lakers on Wednesday. They play the Magic on Friday in a game I can't wait for. The Bucks on Saturday. So at least like 3 good teams in the Bucks on there. But the way they're like putting Darius Garland off ball and having him relocate is more movement than I've ever seen him do in his NBA career. Someone like Isaac Okoro in the limited minutes he's playing, even and under JB Bickerstaff, he would just stand in the corner and have to like instinctually know when to cut into the rim for a back cut. Now they're doing a very intentional thing where he's moving, he's probing in and out. He's kind of like running the baseline behind in the dunker spot behind the center in case there's a lapse. He can be there for a layup and crash the glass. There's just these little tweaks and the energy from a new coach, West, that have this Cavs team looking really good, really fun, and I think improved based on just a couple of games. But I think the early results have been everything Cleveland could have wanted.
Yeah, and still no Max Strus, right? Who would obviously help the spacing and stuff like that. And, watching them, it seems obvious, but put Jared Allen and Evan Mobley on the court together. That's fine because defensively they're dominant. And then on the offensive end, just make sure they're on opposite sides of the court all the time. And that tends to be what they're doing, right? Like this is sort of basic stuff. And what's really funny is watching how Atkinson is kind of installing like the basic things that we thought JB Bickerstaff should be installing. And then you see JB Bickerstaff doing these basic things in Detroit. So I guess
it's like, where was this? It's like, right. It's like, where was this the whole time? I don't understand. Like, what?
And maybe we're just getting to like what the bar is when you enter. Like Monty Williams just clearly didn't seem interested in doing that job last year, and now JB Bickerstaff clearly is. So I don't know what it is, but no, you're absolutely right. They look great, and I think it also helps that they're empowering Evan Mobley. Like I think a lot of people talk about like what JJ Redick has done with Anthony Davis, kind of running the offense through him and empowering him to be a more active contributor in what it is that the Lakers are doing on the offensive end. I think Atkinson is doing something very similar with Evan Mobley. They're just, hey, get the ball in this guy's hands. Let him go to work. Like, let him dribble the ball. He doesn't have to stand in the corner and take 3-pointers like he was doing under Bickerstaff really towards sort of the second half of last season. Like, give him the ball at the top of the key. Let's see what this guy can do, right? And so far, I think the results have been really good. I think it's taken some off of Garland. It's taken some responsibility off of Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell has been awesome, not surprisingly. And this defense has been good, and there's a reason why they still haven't lost a game yet.
Mobley's I think the place to end this. He's been great. If it wasn't for Chet, I think you could make the case he's been like the most interesting young big guy in the league over the first start of the season. He's taken at least 2 threes in every game. He hit 1 on opening night, hit 2 of his 3 in the next game. He's taken 6, 2, and 7 free throws, so he's being a little more aggressive. And to your point about just getting him the ball, they're legitimately running sets through him as a hub at times, which rarely happened a year ago. It's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times a game, you're getting him sets. And you're seeing some of the growing pains with that, where at times he's missed shooters. I think there's times where he is maybe looking to score, or there's times where like the physicality. There's like a couple times at the Pistons game from last week, for instance, where I think of Mobley that was like maybe a little stronger or just understood what something was just a little off where I think like a dunk was there for him and he just couldn't quite get there and he ends up missing. But I think those are things he can achieve and will get better at as he gets more of these reps. And this is the kind of thing that, now even if you like they're winning games still, number one. And two, even if there are some growing pains, you're good enough otherwise to absorb a lot of those on most nights. And it's going to pay off for you in the long run. I think you hit the point on the head. It's like you emphasize this guy, if you're Atkinson, you're setting yourself up for success if you do that. And I think it's a big deal.
He could be the skeleton key that unlocks everything for Cleveland. Like all the personnel overlap and issues that we have about the Cavaliers, they kind of go away if the best version of Evan Mobley sort of emerges out of all of this, right? Because if you're playing through him in that triple threat spot, well, now you have him up high on the floor, and that means that Jarrett Allen can hang out in the dunker spot. They're not overlapping anymore. That's a value add, right? Like if Evan Mobley is taking shots or making passes from that area, then you have a guy who can clean things up in Jarrett Allen under the basket. Or obviously as a lob threat. And then that whole thing of, all right, well, is it Donovan Mitchell that we want to run the offense through? Do we run it through Darius Garland? Well, maybe the answer is neither. And you run it through Evan Mobley on a lot of these possessions. And now you have these two awesome shooters running off ball and doing all these other things that they can do. It kind of feels like Cleveland's ceiling goes with Evan Mobley. And I think their floor is with all their talent, right? Like it's one of the most talented starting fives in the league. When you just look at what they have on paper, it's just the fit that has been problematic for them these last couple of years. But the sheer level of talent is undeniable. And I think that gives them the floor that they've basically had the last couple of years, which is sort of like this, right, like in Sharpie playoff team in the Eastern Conference. But can they take that next step? And it feels like Mobley is the key to that. And if now all of a sudden you're running offense through him and he's this defensive guy who's a defensive player of the year type of player, then yeah, I think everything could just kind of click into place. So it's been very interesting to sort of watch this development. And you're exactly right. Like it's far from perfect right now, but the only way you get there is by giving him the reps. And I'm glad they're doing it at this point in the season, because maybe by the playoffs, he's, if they still do this, like he's just going to be way better than at all this stuff than he is right now.
All right, Wes, let's decide which one matters more.
I think the Mobley thing probably matters more. No?
I think it does. I was tempted in my head to make the argument for the Nuggets part, because that's a team that we think of as having a more immediate title, situation. Former champ, has maybe the best player in the world, arguably.
See, I think if I were to reword my argument, I think I could have won this little debate here, but because I zeroed in on Russell Westbrook, like that's not, if I would just say, hey, the Denver Nuggets have a problem with their bench and it's not fixable, maybe I win this. But I just wanted to just dunk on Russell Westbrook for a little bit, because he's again, actively pissing me off while I'm watching these games. So I think you actually pointed out to the more material thing where I think I almost did myself in with a poor debate performance.
Look, we're just hitting the SEO of Russ, That's what we're just doing our jobs. But I think it's Mobley. Very excited. I'm going to him. I'm going with my dad to see Cavs Lakers Wednesday. Very excited for the Mobley Anthony Davis stuff. Yeah.
There it is.
And LeBron. Anytime LeBron's here, particularly, I think like I think Bronny's traveling on this road trip. I think that's just going to be one of those. It's going to be like a really LeBron in town's always a big night. It's going to feel even. Does it feel? Let me ask you this: does it, when LeBron comes back to Miami, does it still feel like a big deal?
Not as much as it used to. There was definitely a point in time, but it was like, especially that second time in Cleveland when he would come back, yes. But after he went to the Lakers, not as much. And what was even weird is, and this is probably partially because of the whole bubble environment, but even when he was playing his former team in the NBA Finals, it didn't really even feel that way, even though that was a storyline that, everybody was trying to push because it's an obvious one. But it just was like, I don't know, that's the Lakers. Like, we don't have any history with the Lakers. Like, that was just sort of what it was. But start planning where you're going to put that LeBron James statue and start mapping out the face now, because apparently you need a lot of time to put into that.
Yeah, I'm sure the hairline for that one will get. I mean, honestly, they could do multiple LeBron statues and get a. Where will they put it? That's actually a really good question. I actually know where they should put it, but he should get one like the day he retires. He should get one like his last year. They actually should They should have been working on this frankly, the moment they won the title. Like, someone in the front office's job should have been find a good statue guy.
Yeah. Just give it to him as his final gift in the last year during his last dance, that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, a statue guy is called a sculptor. To be clear. That's called the sculptor.
Hey, tell that to the Miami Heat, because I think they found a statue guy.
Yeah, they found a statue guy. But we're going to end there. I'm Chris Manning. That's Wes Goldberg. all your NBA takes and statue NBA takes later this week on our second episode. Tune in for that. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your week.